13th of September, the governments of Kenya and Germany signed a migration and mobility agreement that would provide employment opportunities for Kenyans in the European economic powerhouse. The deal is a framework for cooperation on issues of labor mobility, student training, labor market needs, employment and welfare of workers, as well as ease the repatriation of Kenyans who are in Germany without legal documentation. Well, this agreement has sparked public debate amid confusing statements about the number of Kenyans expected to benefit. To expound more on this matter, we have in studio the Principal Secretary for Diaspora Affairs in the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Rosaline Jogu. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you.
And before we get into it, let's just listen to what transpired today with regards to the same matter.
Came from Germany yesterday, where we were signing an agreement because they want some of our people to work for their industries. And the negotiations I was having with Chancellor Scholz was, okay, we are giving you our people to work in your companies, but we must also agree when will those companies be transferred from Germany to Kenya? Because it must work both ways. If we are giving you our people, we must also begin to think, these big companies, whether they are Mercedes, when are we relocating them to Kenya so that we don't have to transport people there? It is easier to transport the companies here.
All right, so that was President William Ruto speaking on the same issue. Now, PS, as we begin and looking at that particular agreement, it has sparked quite the public debate. Just a brief overview of what is entailed in the agreement.
Right, so thank you for that, Zainab. This is a one-of-a-kind migration and mobility agreement. It's a framework that we have set up between the governments of the federal government of Germany and the Republic of Kenya to structure how we will cooperate and synergize our labor markets. We have young people, particularly young people who need employment. Germany has the opposite problem. They have no young people. They have huge labor market needs in terms of people working in that market. So it's really sort of a match made in heaven. If you look at our demographics, if you graph them, we have a regular pyramid. And if you look at the German, it's an inverted pyramid in the sense that they have a very small working population supporting a much larger, older demographic, and ours is the opposite, right? So we have a median age of about 19 and a half. The median age of Kenya is 19 and a half years. For Germany, I believe, is 44. So what that means is as the last of the baby boomers exit the workforce in Germany, the crisis for being able to power their industries and to work in those spaces is being felt. And as you have an older population, then you begin to have certain labor needs, such as around healthcare work and so on, because older people require certain kinds of services. On the other hand, we have a youth boom. We have very many young people, 1 million people joining the labor market every year. And we think it's part of our responsibility as government to help those people find opportunities, whether here, whether online, or whether in the diaspora.
Well, yes, ideally many countries export their labor because of surplus, but we have a gross unemployment rate in the country. Then what is the rationale behind it then?
But we are necessarily supplying more people than we can absorb in our market. Our economy is not growing at the same rate as our birth rate or the number of people joining I think it's called the labor outturn is concerned. Every year, we have 1 million people joining the labor market. We're not able to absorb that number. Is the economy growing? Yes. Is it growing at the same rate? No. So what ideally that would mean is if you don't have opportunities within the economy, online, and within the global labor market, you will have a large number of Kenyans who we have educated, even at great cost to government and to families, without employment.
So why not create enough employment for Kenyans here in the country? Why not formalize the economy, widen the tax bracket if it's the issue of creating, and even, I know you're going to talk about the issue of remittances as well. Why not create the jobs for Kenyans here?
Fantastic question. Fantastic question. Why not more jobs here? It takes time to create jobs here. it does require re-engineering your economy to do that. And we have tried to do that in many ways. For example, 50,000 teachers just in the last 1 year have been hired. That is 50,000 jobs that didn't exist last year. Government structures specific programs that are supposed to take in people, basically mop up your unemployment. The affordable housing program is one such program that takes up people within the affordable house, within the construction sector, whether they be engineers, civil engineers, architects, masons, carpenters, and so on. And in the last 1 year, I believe the numbers are about 160,000 Kenyans who have joined, who now have work because of the affordable housing program. So these things happen, and these things are being done, but the numbers are still larger than we are able to grow with internally, including by incentivizing. And remember, government might hire people, but the larger jobs exist in the private sector.
All right.
So including incentivizing private sector and so on. But this is what I want to say, Zainab. The global labor market exists. In the same way the global market for tea or for coffee or for flowers exists. And Kenyans have been playing in the global labor market without government intervention, sometimes even before we had proper structures for government support. What are we doing now? We have come to the table and said, the global labor market exists. We have a youth workforce surplus situation going on. How do we take advantage of what has already been set up? The global labor market is there. How do you facilitate Kenyans to play better within that global labor market? How do you protect Kenyans when they play in that global labor market? What do you, as a government, what can you set up to ensure that your people are able to take advantage of these opportunities that exist and be protected? So that's why you see us in conversations around creating a framework that allows Kenyans to access markets outside of this country for their protection, so that we negotiate with other governments about what protecting Kenyans is going to look like, and the kinds of things that go around that.
All right. So then it brings me to the question of the number of Kenyans expected to go there. We saw the German government deny the report on the agreement of the number of people, and this is despite, by the way, the president in a previous interview with the German broadcaster Deutsche Welle quoting a number of 250,000 Kenyans expected to go to Germany. So where is the issue?
Let me be very clear. The agreement, and I can speak without fear of contradiction because I was the lead negotiator of this agreement, it's a non-quota-based agreement. What does that mean? Some agreements will usually say we are going to give Kenya 10,000 visas, or we're going to take 15,000 healthcare workers from Kenya and we'll give India 20,000 and so on and so forth. This agreement is very different. This agreement says we have our law. This is Germany. We have our law. These are the requirements for anybody who wants to work. We are opening the market for you, provided you qualify. So the question about whether it is 250,000 or 300,000 or 10,000 or whatever is moot, because it is as many as can qualify who are able to take up.
When we have a whole federal republic, I mean a whole federal government
let me correct you, Zainab.
reports that has been stated by the head of state who has the authority to speak on these matters.
Let me clarify, Zainab. I think the message that you're talking about is a tweet by the German Interior Ministry. And if you look at that tweet properly, it was responding to a BBC report. The BBC said something along the lines of Germany begins to receive 250,000 Kenyans. The German Interior Ministry clarified and said this is not something along the lines of this is not a quota-based agreement. It is based on the skills, I think, migration agreement or something like that. And that has always been the position. If you look at the communication between Chancellor Scholz and His Excellency the President, one of the things that was discussed is what is the size of the market? How many opportunities, if you are to size the market, how many opportunities exist? And one of the things that Chancellor Scholz, when he had visited Kenya, had mentioned is the size of the market, which is where this 250,000 jobs comes from. But if you even look at other government, even German government documentation, you will find that number, and you will find sometimes even larger numbers.
Well, now, I actually do have that tweet.
Very good, and I can actually see it.
Right,
yes.
Let me just quote it.
Sure.
It says the information is false. The agreement between Germany and Kenya does not include any number of or quotas of skilled workers who will have an opportunity to work in Germany. All applicants must fulfill the strict requirements of the German Skilled Immigration Act.
Yes.
But then again,
I would ask you to look at what you're looking at. This is a reply to the BBC tweet. But maybe read the BBC tweet.
Yes, I've seen it. But to just make it clear as well, we do have a clip of the president himself in an interview with the German Deutsche Welle broadcaster talking about the 250,000
And that
number.
is the size of the market, Zainab. It is, if today you ask me what is the size of the cosmetics market in Kenya,
Right.
I'm likely to give you a figure, isn't it? And say it is $1 billion and whatever. I'm not saying that L'Oreal, for example, will take the $1 billion market. I'm saying this is the size of the market. Now, structure yourself or set yourself up to be able to take up that space in that market. But let me also say this, Zainab. The question that Kenyans ought to be concerning themselves with is not whether there are 250,000 jobs or whether there's going to be a quota or how many visas Kenyans are going to get. The question Kenyans ought to be concerning themselves with is, how can we prepare ourselves to play in this market? How can we learn the language so that we are able to take up these opportunities now that the door is open?
All right.
What are we going to do to make sure that people are able to take up those opportunities?
So how many realistically, when you're looking at the number, then you're saying it doesn't matter, but realistically, how many Kenyans would be able to get jobs in Germany?
Zainab, that is a really interesting but impossible to answer question. Because it is not that they are looking for nurses only. It is not that they are looking for carpenters only. It is not that they're looking for drivers only. They are looking for opportunities across various industries.
All right.
So I cannot at this point tell you 20 bakers or 300 hairdressers
Timelines?
or 1,000. Beginning immediately. Kenyans are already accessing these opportunities. In fact, this week, one of the things that the president did is meet 5 transport workers, bus drivers who had arrived this very week to begin to take up these opportunities.
All right.
Let me connect something,
Zainab.
Let me connect something, Zainab, that you talked about creating jobs. Diasporas around the world are important for creating opportunities back home. Whenever people leave their country and go abroad, they pick up skills, they pick up technology, they pick up networks, and very often they come back home eventually and set up businesses and so on. If you think about the Indian healthcare industry, that has been built by their diaspora. If you think about their tech industry, that has been built by their diaspora.
All right.
So this idea that diaspora are, it's a brain drain or they're moving abroad and never to come back, that's not the long game. The long game always is, how do we use our diaspora to be able to build up in the next generation and the next generation? Can we get the skills back? Can we get the technology back? Are we able now to speak specifically to what the president was saying, for example, if you send many Kenyans out to work in the automotive industry in Germany, for example, after some time, you will have a critical mass of Kenyans who know how to build parts for these vehicles. And then slowly you can begin to move some of that manufacturing here. So it's important that we see the long game. It is not just about people going to work for the next 5 years. It is, what will those people be able to do in the next 20?
Thank you, Rosalind Jogu, Principal Secretary, State Department of Diaspora Affairs. We would love to continue this conversation. Hopefully we'll do so after this break. Stay with us.